H is more of what we were doing. So, so far you have been looking at finding the slope from 2 points. So today we're going to look at writing the equation of a line given certain information. Okay, so the main thing that you need to know is to write the equation of a line, you need a slope and a y-intercept. Okay, because we know y equals mx plus b, and m is slope, and b is the y-intercept. So to write the equation of a line, you have to have a slope and you have to have a y-intercept. So if we look at example 9, it says write the equation of a line that has a slope of 4/3 and passes through the point 6, -2. So I have a slope. I know for this equation I've got y equals 4/3 x, and I do not know what the y-intercept is, so I'm going to put a b right here. The y-intercept is not -2, because this point right here, 6, -2, 6, -2 is right here. So that is not the y-intercept, so we would not use that 6 or the -2 as our y-intercept. So there are several ways that you can find the equation of the line. I'm going to teach you 2 of those ways. If you want to know more, I'll gladly teach you, but sometimes it's better not to have too many choices on things. So the first thing that you can do is if you have a graph, you can graph it. Okay? And sometimes that will work out nicely, and sometimes it will not. Okay? So let's look at this particular problem. So for this problem, I've got 4/3 and I've got the point 6, -2. So the line has a slope of 4/3. So that means at whatever point I'm at on the line, I would go up 4 and over 3. That is not going to get me towards my y-intercept. So instead, I'm going to go down 4 and to the left 3. And down 4 and to the left 3. Just the opposite of what it's calling for, because if I keep going up 4, right 3, up 4, right 3, up 4, right 3, that does not get me to the y-intercept. And I need to know where the y-intercept is over here, so I'm just going the opposite direction. Because it tells me that this line passes through the point 6, -2. So it didn't give me a y-intercept here. It gave me just a point somewhere that it goes through. So it doesn't give me the y-intercept. But whenever I graph this, it lines up really nicely. What is the y-intercept of that line? -10. So my equation over here is going to be y equals 4/3 x minus 10. Now normally when we graph a line, we would graph the y-intercept first and then use the slope. But this gives us a point, so we have to start at that point and then use our slope. And we can work backwards to find that y-intercept. Okay, questions? Alright, so this is one method that you can use. However, it does not always work very well. In fact, I'm going to you don't have to write this down, I'm just going to sort of show you how it sometimes does not work. So like, for example, say that I have a slope. Why is it not working? There it goes. Slope of 2/3 and a point. It passes through 1, negative 1. So if the graph goes through 1, negative 1, that's, oh, nope, that's not there. Wrong side. 1, negative 1 is right here. And if I have a slope of 2/3, that'd be up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3. I'd go down to left 3. And here's the problem with this. Does that cross perfectly at a grid line? It does not. I know it does not because this is not a down 1 over 1 slope. So it's close right there, but it does not. I can tell the y-intercept somewhere between negative 1 and negative 2, but I don't know exactly what that y-intercept is. So sometimes it works out really nicely where your y-intercept is a whole number. In fact, it'll happen a lot because with worksheets we like to get whole numbers, so it'll happen a lot. But there are times where the graph is not going to work. So let's look at example 10. So we've got to write the equation of a line that has these properties. It has a slope of 3 and a point on the line, negative 5, negative 2. So we're going to learn another way to do this besides the graph. Now, I don't know, the graph might work okay on this one, but sometimes it does not. So I'm going to show you the algebraic way to do this. So we know y equals, or one of the algebraic ways, there's more, but y equals mx plus b. They already told us the slope. So y equals 3x plus b. Alright, so I need to find b. That's what I need so that I have an equation of this line. So anytime you have a point on the line, those points can be plugged into your equation. So what you're going to have here is this is your x coordinate, this negative 5, and this is your y coordinate. So I can plug those numbers in for x and y in this equation. And if I do, the only letter I'll have left is b. And then I can solve for that b. So my x coordinate is negative 5. So I'll have 3 times negative 5 plus b over here. My y coordinate is negative 2, so I'll plug in my negative 2 over here. If you remember back at the very beginning of graphing, I showed you where you could just take your x coordinate and plug it in, and it'd give you your y coordinate. So that's what we're doing here, except for we're plugging the x and the y in. And so now I'm going to solve for that b right there. So the first thing I would need to do is multiply 3 and negative 5. So I'll have negative 2 equals negative 15 plus b. And then I'm trying to get that b right there by itself. So I'm going to add that 15 to both sides. 15 there. Can't see it well. So I'll get 13 equals b. So the y-intercept of this line would be 13. And so our answer is the equation because the question said write the equation. So you have y equals 3x plus 13. Do not put the negative 5 and the negative 2 in the equation whenever you're writing that equation of line. Now, I'm going to pull up Desmos real quick just so we can see what that looks like. You will not have a calculator or Desmos on these, but I just want you to see what that looks like. So you've got negative 5, negative 2 is our point. There's a slope of 3, so it would go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. Actually, go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. And so if we graph our line that we got, y equals 3x plus 13, we can see right there at 13 is our y-intercept. And it goes through this point and it has a slope of 3. You can also, on Desmos, we could do this, I guess, if you wanted. That y-intercept, if you kind of change it like that, you can see we kind of line it up right there. That fits. So this is what it looks like. The same thing we did on the last one, but we're doing it without graphing it. Now, you are welcome to graph any of them. You will have graph paper on any of the quizzes or tests that we do for this stuff. So you can graph every one. The only problem is that sometimes they're not graphable. Sometimes they're not a whole number, so you're not going to be able to find it with graphs. Sometimes they might have larger numbers that make it really hard to graph. So we do need to be able to do this. Okay. So let's look at the next one. We've got a slope of 1/2. Point on the line is -8,4. So we know y equals 1/2 x plus b. We don't know what that b is yet, but that's what we want to find. I'm not sure. I've not worked that far ahead. What would you do, though, Julie? What would we do to find our b here? Okay, good. So we'll have, let me write that down. So we'll have, this is our y coordinate, so 4 equals 1/2, and then the x is -8 plus b. Looks very good. And then what did you say after that? So 1/2 times -8 is -4. Very good. So we get 8 for the y-intercept. Probably could have graphed this one. And so y equals 1/2 x plus 8 is our answer. Okay, questions? All right. Okay, so for 12, we got to write the equation of a line that has a slope of 2/3 and passes through the point 6, 0. So for this one, we know we're going to have y equals 2/3 x plus b. So Cole, tell me what I need to do. Number 12, yes. Tell me how to do it without graphing. We could graph. Maybe. Okay, so some of these won't work necessarily without graphing, so I need you to know how to do it this way also. So this is your x coordinate. This is your y coordinate. B is what you're looking for, right? We want to find that B. So no. Well, so if we plug in x right here, if we plug in 6 for our x, then the equation should give me y, which is 0. So you plug in your x and your y into your equation. Okay? So 2/3 of 6. What is 2/3 of 6, Cole? Not 2. 1/3 of 6 is 2. 2/3 of 6 is 4. Or if you need to, 2/3 times 6 over 1 is 12 over 3, which is 4. So we get 4. Drive me crazy. 4 plus b. And then we want that b right there by itself, Cole. So what do we need to do? Good. And so what do we get for our b, Cole? Not quite. -4. Okay? So our equation, that's our y-intercept, but this asks for the equation, so y equals 2/3 x minus 4. Questions? Alright, let's look at 13. Alright, so we've got a slope of negative 1. So y equals negative 1x plus b. Olivia, what would we do next? We're looking for the b. So we need to replace everything except for the b. What? We will not here because what we want is a number for our b. So this is different than like solving an equation for y or something. So if I take I know this point right here is on the line. That tells me if I plug in negative 3, I get 4 for my y. So we're going to take those two numbers and we're going to plug them in for our x and for our y. So the y is 4, so I'm going to put 4 here. And I'll have negative 1 times the x is negative 3. So I'm going to plug in negative 3 there. Okay. Alright, so whenever I do that, then I have to solve that equation for the b. I've got to get the b by itself. What would I do first for that, Olivia? Okay, so I've got something there that I could do really easily just because they're beside of each other. What could I do? Before I get rid of anything, that negative 1 and that negative 3, I could just multiply them together first. Okay, what do we get whenever we do that? Good, so we'll get, let's go back to blue. 4 equals 3 plus b. So, very good. Now we can worry about getting rid of things. So we're trying to get the b by itself. We got to get rid of the 3. How are we going to do that, Olivia? Very good. We'll subtract that 3. That gives us 1 equals b. So our y-intercept is 1 for this one. It did not ask us just for the y-intercept, though. It asked us for the equation of the line. So for the equation of the line, I'm going to have y equals negative 1x plus 1. That'll be our equation. Yes, and actually, you are exactly right, Zena. It would look better if we said negative x. That's actually probably what you're going to see. Okay, questions? Not sure yet. I'm not planning that far ahead. We'll practice with it a little more of that. Alright, so here's the next thing that we're going to do. So far we were writing the equation with a point and a slope. We also need to be able to write the equation of a line that all we have are the 2 points. Okay, so just like the others, this can sometimes be done by graphing. So let's start by looking at just graphing this. So if I have the point negative 2, 4, I'm going to graph that negative 2, 4 is here. And then 3, 9 is up here. And then I'm going to draw the line through those points. And so if we graph it and it works out fairly nicely like this one, then we can just write the equation from what we've got right here, because we know y equals mx plus b. So Ian, whenever we look at that, what is let's do y-intercept first. What's the y-intercept of that line? So I know over here on the end I'm going to have a plus 6. And Ian, what is the slope of that line? No, it shouldn't be 1, 2. So like if we if we start here, I think it's just going to be up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Or if you need to, you could go from the points that they gave you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 over 5 would also give us 1. So we would have a slope of 1. And we probably would not write that 1 there because it makes us look like we don't know what we're doing. So y equals x plus 6 is how we would write that, our answer there. It wouldn't take it if you put a 1 there. Yeah. It's technically correct to have the 1 there, but you look like you don't know what you're doing if you put the 1 there. Yeah. Putting the 1 there is kind of like if your back windshield busts out and you just take a piece of plastic and some duct tape and fix it. It works, but it doesn't look like it's the best, right? Obviously this was not work done by somebody that knows how to actually fix a windshield. I guess there could be better examples there. All right, so just like the other problems, you can use the graph. The graph is fine. I encourage you to use the graph some, but I do need you to be able to do these without the graph as well. I have not given you too many right here that come up with ugly numbers, but it does happen sometimes, and I will give you some purposefully on the quiz so that you have to use the equations instead of using the graph. So for number 15, we have to write the equation of a line that passes through 4, 1, and 2, negative 3. So all I really know about a line right now, I could teach you some other stuff. I know a lot about lines, actually. But all you guys really know much about a line right now is y equals mx plus b. Alright, and to use y equals mx plus b, you have to have a slope, and you have to have a y-intercept. So to write an equation, we got to have a slope and a y-intercept. We don't have either one of those right now. So if you don't have either one, the first thing you want to find is the slope. Okay. So Tristan, do we know how to find the slope just between those 2 points? Should we know how to find the slope between those 2 points? We should, because that's what we did with our warm-up, right? So, Tristan, for that, okay, so you do know how? Okay, so how would we find the slope, Tristan, for these 2 points? Not quite. So the formula here is y2 minus y1. Y's got to be on top, and you got to subtract instead of add. And then x2 minus x1. So try again, Tristan. Good. 2 minus 4. Perfect. Gosh. Okay. You don't necessarily have to go backwards. You can do 1 minus negative 3 and 4 minus 2 if you want. You'll get the same answer. Your signs will be different in your middle step, but you'll get the same answer in the end. So either one. So I get negative 4 over negative 2, and negative 4 divided by negative 2 is a positive 2. So here's my slope. So I know I got y equals 2x plus b. I'm halfway there. So now I need the y-intercept. How are we going to find that y-intercept? Okay, we can plug. What do we plug in though, Cole? the 2 we just got here. So we plug that in for our slope. How are we going to find this y-intercept, though? Yes. And we can do the same thing we were just doing. What we've done now is we basically made this problem like the problems we were just doing. Because we got a slope, and we actually have 2 points on the line. So we could do what we were doing in the last problem. We could do -3. Tell me that again. Hold on. Let me write that down. No. This is our x coordinate. This is our y coordinate. So what we've got to replace the x. So we replace the y with -3, like you did, and then instead of the x, what would we have? The 2, and then the plus b, right there. So we could do this, and we would get -3 equals 4 plus b, just like we did on the last problems that we were doing before these. And then we would subtract our 4, b equals 7. So my answer would be y equals, that's -7, 2x minus 7. Question for you. How did you decide you were going to use 2 -3? Good. Did you have to use 2 -3? Okay. Do you guys think we'll get the same thing if we use the other one? We should. So just so you can see, you don't have to do it both ways. I just want you to see that it does work both ways. If I had used 4 and 1, I would have 1 equals 2 times 4 plus b, which would give me 1 equals 8 plus b, and I would subtract 8, and I would subtract 8, so -7 would equal b, which is what I have over here. So you can use either point. Just pick one, whichever one looks easiest to you. Okay? All right, questions? All right, let's try the next one. So for this one, let's see, who wants to help me? Hayden. So I need a slope and a y-intercept. How do I find the slope for this one? Did it on the last problem. We use this formula. Or we could use a table. Okay, Hayden. So we got to do, this is our x1, this is our y1, this is our x2, this is our y2. Okay, so we got to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So what's that going to look like for these points, Hayden? All right, so our y2, take a step at a time. What is our y2? Okay, the y is just a 3. All right, so we'll have 3 minus, and we got to do y1. So what's the first y? Say it again, sorry. -9, very good. Make sure you put some parentheses so you don't get things lost there. All right, and then we have x2. What's our x2, Hayden? 0. And what's our x1? It's 5. So, double negative here, we're going to make that a positive. 3 plus 9 is going to give us 12. 0 minus 5 is going to give us 5. Okay, so we get a slope of 12 over 5. Will that reduce? It will not. It is a negative. Thank you very much. So it's going to give us a negative 12 over 5. Thank you. Typically, what you're going to see it written as. Technically, you can write this as negative 12 over 5. You can write it as 12 over negative 5. But what you're going to see it written as most of the time is you're going to see the negative out front of the whole fraction, like right there even with the fraction bar, and then 12 over 5. This is what you're more likely to see as far as like looking at answer choices and stuff like that. They typically put the negative out front. But it can technically go in the top or the bottom. You just can't put it in both places. There. Okay? Alright, so we've got our slope. So now we need to write the equation of the line. So, anybody see anything that makes this kind of easy? 0, 3. 0, 3, if you graph it, 0 up 3, where is that at? Y-axis. This is your y-intercept, right? So if you notice, this is the y-intercept, you can go straight to the answer. But a lot of times we don't notice it, right? A lot of times we mess that up. So if we needed to, we could do y equals negative 12 over 5x plus b. And then we would plug in, we would pick one of these points. Probably you would pick 0, 3 because it looks easier, even if you don't realize it's the y-intercept. So you got 3 equals negative 12 over 5 times 0 plus b, so you're just going to get 3 for your b because that you'll have a 0 there. So our answer for this one is y equals negative 12 over 5 x plus b. Oh, don't leave the b there. What am I doing? Plus 3. Okay, questions? Alright, let's see, I didn't give you any of those. Do I want to right now? Yes, I do. Okay, I'm going to add just a couple little things here. So you got a little blank space there at the end. So, instructions are going to be for both of these. Write the equation of the line through. Alright, for number 1, we're going to have the points 2, 7 and 2, negative 3. And for, I guess, actually that's like what, 17? This we'll call it 18. No. Just some extra examples I didn't put on here that I want to do. 1, 5, and negative 4, 5. Okay, so we could go through and do the exact same thing that we've been doing for these problems. So if we did, we would have to find our slope. And if we found our slope, we would have negative 3 minus 7 over 2 minus 2, which gives us negative 10 over 0. What's that? Undefined. Now, here's our problem. When we start writing the equation of this line, I can't say y equals undefined x plus b. That doesn't make any sense, right? I can't do that. But there is an equation for this line, and our directions asked us to write the equation of the line. So undefined is not your answer. Undefined is the slope, but undefined is not your answer because that's not the equation of the line. So, let's do this. I'm going to put this graph up here. I know you guys don't have a graph. You can just watch what I'm doing here. Okay, so for this, if I graph the point 2, 7, that would be right here. And if I graph the point 2, negative 3, that would be right here. Well, it won't be because it won't want me right like I want to. And I should have already known, but if I didn't, I can see pretty clearly that this is a vertical line. Right, the line that goes through this. And for vertical lines, what do the equations look like? X equals a number. And in this case, X equals 2. Okay, because that's what our X coordinate is. So, if you get this, here's what you need to do to write the equation. If you get undefined as your slope, look back at your points. Look at the coordinates. Find out which ones are the same, because some of them were the same for this to equal undefined. And then, which coordinate is that? X or Y coordinate? It's your X coordinate. So your answer is X equals 2. Alright, so if you notice it right away, for example, on number 18, if I notice right away, I have a Y coordinate of 5 and a Y coordinate of 5. They're the same. I can go right ahead if I notice it, and I can say the answer to this is Y equals 5. So if you notice it, these are going to be your easiest problems. So you just look, oh, both the x's are the same, x equals 2. Oh, both of the y's are the same, y equals 5. You don't have to do any work at all if you notice it. So if I just saw this first problem and I realized, oh, 2 and 2, this is x equals 2. I would not even have to find the slope there. Now, let's look at 18 just so 18 you can still get right even if you don't do anything different than you've been doing. 17 you're going to miss if you don't know how to do look at the two coordinates and tell which one, because you can't put undefined into y equals mx plus b. 18 you can actually still get right if you do it the other way, so I'm just going to show you how that works. So if you did the slope, you would have 5 minus 5. 5 minus 5 over negative 4 minus 1. It's going to give you 0 over negative 5. What is 0 over negative 5? It is 0. 0 on top is 0. So, you got y equals 0x plus b. So you could take one of these points and plug it in. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So you could put 5 equals 0 times 1 plus b. So 5 equals 0 plus b, which is just b. And then, so you end up with y equals 0x plus b. I'm sorry, keep forgetting to plug that back in. Plus 5. But what is 0 times x? The 0x is way worse than leaving 1x, in my personal opinion, because 0 times x is 0. So this is 0 plus 5, which is just y equals 5. So leaving this, technically speaking, y equals 0x plus 5 is technically correct. But you really don't look like you know what you're doing if you leave 0x plus 5 there. Now, you don't have to do any of that work at all. You can just say, oh, they're both 5, y equals 5. But it will work if you do it this way. It won't for vertical lines, because vertical lines are not going to be y equals anything. Okay, questions? like for you guys to graph things. However, I really do need you to know how to do this without graphing as well. So, on the homework, and this only goes for the homework because on the quiz or test I will let you do this any way that you want, but there's going to be some on the quiz or test where you have to graph it because the y-intercept is -2/3, and you're not going to get it right if you don't. You have to solve it by hand. So, on the homework, I want you to do everything without the graph, but you are welcome to graph to check your answers, okay? So everything without the graph, just because we need some practice doing that, okay? And then after we've had some practice doing that with homework, then I'll open it up where you can use the graph more after that, okay? All right, so, that quit recording, didn't it?